Welcome friends to a review on the 2025 Lexus TX 500H. This is the fully loaded F-Sport Performance luxury trim level. So vehicles like this, when you get all of the options and packages, you're going to be around the $78,000 range. Now, I'm going to do this video in kind of a pros and cons style. I will say this, overall, I do really love this vehicle. It does give you a truly luxurious and premium driving vibe for sure. So I'll start with the first pro. It's going to be this drivetrain. We have here the TX 500H. That means this is a performance hybrid. We have here the 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine mated to some electric motors. The total system output of this, it's 366 horsepower and 406 pounds-feet of torque. When Car and Driver did a 0 to 60 test in this, they got a time of around 5.7 seconds. There's also a plug-in hybrid TX 550H at the top, and that is going to be even more powerful than this, around 406 total system horsepower. Car and Driver got 5.2 seconds with that. Overall, this drivetrain setup, it does feel really quick. We also have here the direct 4 all-wheel drive system with the 6-speed automatic transmission for these TX 500 models. All of this works seamlessly. It is quick. I love how efficiently this direct 4 all-wheel drive system puts the power down. I personally could care less about the actual 0 to 60 times. In the real world, this is so rapid. You're getting up to city speeds at near instantaneous levels, and that's really all that matters. And as mentioned before, this is supposed to be designed for power and not necessarily efficiency. Lexus quotes that these TX 500s can get about 27 mpg in the city, 28 out on the highway. I've been driving this a lot more aggressively, so I have not been getting the best fuel economy at all. But really, you're supposed to be getting like V8 levels of power with turbo 4 or turbo 6-cylinder levels of fuel efficiency. Like, that's kind of the point of this. And if you're more mellow and calm, you will be rewarded. You will be getting closer to what Lexus claims regarding the fuel efficiency. So overall, I'm going to say that the drivetrain is a pro. I also love the all-wheel drive system. Now, there is a con that I need to mention regarding the drive, and that's going to be the brakes. Braking performance on this, not that stellar, and I'm not going to blame this vehicle too much because I'm assuming this vehicle has been just getting annihilated by the previous journalists that have been testing this vehicle. So perhaps that's the reason why the brakes are cooked on this, and maybe if I went to a dealership and just drove a brand new model, the braking performance could be a lot better. But I just want to bring that to your attention. If you are going to be testing these TX models, definitely check out the brakes, see if you like it. But in this particular press vehicle that I am reviewing, the brakes require a lot more travel to get the stopping performance that you seek. Let's move on to the next pro. That's going to be the overall refinement of this. This vehicle is genuinely so quiet and tranquil. I'm not surprised because I am a big fan of this vehicle's counterpart, the Toyota Grand Highlander. That too is extremely quiet, especially when you go up to the higher trim levels. The TX is just another level of refinement on top of the Grand Highlander. We do have here the double pane glass being used on the front side windows, not on the rear. Now, a subtle con to note regarding this TX out on the highway, when you get up past like 60 miles per hour, you will get like this whistling effect from this front window here. I'm guessing this particular unit, the window sealing on this, it's not done properly. It's been a long time since I've tested a Lexus product that's had this issue. Again, I'm sure if I tested another model at a dealership, I would not have this whistling effect from the driver's side window. But for sure, if you're at a dealership, it's something that you want to check out. Get these vehicles at the highway speeds to see if the vehicle is truly sealed properly. But other than that, the noises are really well contained with this TX. No real tire noise to speak of. We have here the Continental cross-contact kind of eco tires. They're performing pretty well, and it's wrapped in these massive 22-inch wheels. So let's now talk about the ride quality. Overall, it is really good. It has like this gliding sensation over the road, almost like this lightweight hovercraft feeling. I said a similar thing regarding the RX 450 that I tested as well, and that seems to be like the new Lexus driving signature, a lightweight, easy, non-fatiguing driving experience. That's kind of what they're going for, and that's true, and that's great on decent roads. But a con that I've noticed is when you're driving over not so great roads with a lot of undulations and sharper bumps and impacts, you notice this jostling sensation, right? You go over a bump and this vehicle just kind of bobbles around, and that bump that you went over, it just causes the vehicle to move all over the place. And again, you, the occupants, you're also kind of moving and bobbling around with the vehicle. Same thing out on the highway. Once you're doing higher speeds, you notice that if you go over like an expansion joint or something, the vehicle really gets persuaded by those sharp bumps, especially at those higher speeds. And that sensation I talked about, it just gets amplified at those higher speeds. Keep in mind, this is a TX500. These models, they weigh about 5,000 pounds regarding the curb weight. The top of the line TX550 with the V6 engine, the plug-in hybrid system, that's going to weigh about 300 pounds more than this. I would personally recommend going with the regular TX350 model with just the regular turbo 4-cylinder, none of this hybrid stuff. That's going to weigh around 4,700 pounds. If you go with the luxury trim level TX350 or the F Sport models, that's going to be around 4,700 pounds with the all-wheel drive system on a TX350. That's what I recommend. Perhaps with that lower curb weight could reduce this bobbling sensation, this jostling feeling that I'm noticing from this heavier TX500, and overall comfort may go up because, as mentioned before, yeah, the ride quality is good until you go over sharper impacts, speed bumps, things of that nature. Perhaps a TX350 could be softer still. Now, being that this is a TX500, these come exclusively as F Sport performance models, so you get things like the adaptive damper. So I went through and I played with the different modes. You got the normal mode, you got the sport mode. I put in sport mode. I thought maybe that would stiffen things up and maybe that could reduce some of that floatiness that I'm experiencing. But no, surprisingly, the various modes made no difference with this vehicle. That is such a shame. I mean, I personally do like driving around in the normal mode. I think everything is perfectly calibrated. I just wish that there was more bandwidth in the suspension. Like putting into sport mode, I thought maybe I could experience some stiffer shocks, but that was not the case. But going back to some of the pros, I mean, there is something else to note here. These F Sport performance models come with the dynamic rear wheel steering, and that is tuned so well here. It allows this massive SUV to feel small and nimble throughout the corners whenever you are taking your long sweeping corners or just your everyday left-hand, right-hand turns. This vehicle, it just pivots around the turns and feels so tight in the corners. I really appreciate that sensation. And best of all, you don't even notice the rear wheel steering really working in this vehicle. Everything feels natural. The steering feels good. I recently just got done testing a 2025 911 GTS. The rear wheel steering in that was just so aggressive, and the whole rear end felt disconnected in that 911. Personally, I think the best rear wheel steer is the ones that you don't really notice. Taking U-turns in this, not an issue. In fact, I would say the overall drivability of this is a big pro. This is very easy to drive and to place out on the road. Your view out the front, the back, overall driving position, all of these things are done so well. I love the ergonomics of this TX. It just makes this massive SUV really not feel intimidating to drive. And that's what I'm saying. There's like this paradox going on here. Yeah, the vehicle does handle pretty well, especially as this F Sport performance in all of your turns and corners. The only thing that's really letting this vehicle down is just the weird floatiness and the way that it is unable to absorb the sharper impacts. Again, I feel like these things can be improved just by going with a regular TX350 by reducing some of that curb weight. In fact, if you want a second opinion, Car and Driver seems to have had the exact same experience. They've noticed that these 500 models and overall these hybrids, they just feel a bit stiffer over the impacts. Even though this is a somewhat seemingly softly sprung vehicle, they did say that the TX350 models are going to offer the best ride quality, something to keep in mind. Another benefit with the TX350 is if you go with the luxury trim level, you're able to get a fully loaded product. You know, you're able to get your 360 cameras, your Mark Levinson audio system, while still maintaining the 20-inch wheels. When you go with these F Sport models, they force you to get the 22s. So just by getting these smaller wheels, that could help out, along with the lower curb weight as mentioned before. Now that's everything that I wanted to mention regarding the drive. Overall, I do appreciate it. A subscriber of mine did ask me which vehicle I prefer to drive more, the RX or the TX, and I have to say the TX, it does offer that near six-figure driving experience. Again, on more normal roads, I do appreciate that gliding sensation. Sure, the RX does have a similar feel, but this one feels more premium. The driving experience here feels closer to its MSRP than it does with the RX. This almost has like Mercedes S-Class levels of vibes, and that's huge praise, especially since I do think that this vehicle is rather well priced for the three-row luxury SUV segment. If you skip this hybrid stuff and you just go with the fully loaded TX 350 all-wheel drive, either the luxury or the F Sport, that's going to be about 70 grand. Well-equipped X7s, GLS, Audi Q7s, they're going to be in the low to mid $90,000 range. And they're still not going to be as practical as the TX. Not to mention, if you want these hybrid powertrains, it's available to you with the TX, and that's not really available with the three-row German vehicles. Yes, the German vehicles, they do drive and ride better, for sure. Their chassis are far more composed. They handle their massive curb weight a lot better, but the practicality of this is unmatched, and you're getting a fully loaded product for way less money. Not to mention, if you stay tuned until the end of this video, I will share with you how you can save a substantial amount of money on the TX vehicles. So value is a big pro in my opinion. Now let's move on to the interior segment now. Okay, now that we are stopped, let's talk about this interior space. Overall, I would say that the solidity of this cabin is a big pro. We have this massive 14-inch display. This is a fully loaded vehicle, of course. We have the heated and cooled seats, the heated steering wheel. We have the excellent 360 camera, does a great job. Other than that, you do get things like your wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto as standard. The infotainment, all of it works seamlessly. It is so easy to use and to understand. I even don't mind all of the HVAC being embedded into the touchscreen because it's right there, it's easy to access, and you do have some physical dials to adjust your temperature. So that's good. You also have a physical volume knob, and important functions like your window defrosters, those are actual physical buttons. Digital gauge cluster, that looks good. I mean, overall, the screens do a fantastic job of relaying to you information. Mark Levinson audio system, overall, it's a pro for me. You do kind of have to fiddle with it and make sure you have the tuning calibrated to your liking, but overall, I would say that this is a good audio system. Seats are kind of a pro and a con. Typically, I do like the F Sport seats. In other vehicles like the NX, the RX, it's fine. But here, on a longer trip, I just noticed that it's just not quite as plush as some of the other models I mentioned. Overall, not bad though. These seats definitely are pretty sporty, and they do hug you and keep you in place. Once again, maybe if you go with a TX 350 with the luxury trim level, the seats could be even more comfortable and plush, something to keep in mind there. I do like this F Sport steering wheel though. It's fantastic to grip onto. We have this rather interactive heads-up display. At first, I wasn't a big fan because you kind of run your finger over these buttons on the steering wheel, and then your heads-up display will change, and then it'll allow you to access things like your radar, cruise control, and your track selection, if you will, for your media. I actually like this system now. I think it's pretty well done. You got plenty of storage space, like in your armrest. Glove box is not bad. It's just full of the books right now. Got your wireless charging pad. Pretty big door pocket for bigger bottles, and two massive cup holders in the middle as well. We also get a pano moonroof with this fully loaded TX 500H. We also have the garage home link embedded into the rear view mirror along with the kind of digital mirror. So if you have this vehicle just full of things and it's blocking your rear visibility, then you can flip on that digital mirror and then you can see behind you clearly. Overall, all of these kind of features work phenomenally well in these new Lexus vehicles. Same thing with the Lexus safety system. So we get Lexus Safety Tech 3.0 Plus with these TX models as standard, and that also includes your blind spot monitoring, your rear cross traffic alert. You get all of that stuff as standard, and all of the Lexus Safety Tech actually works exceptionally well. Features are a pro, and the other biggest pro regarding the TX, it's going to be the sheer amount of interior space for adults. Same thing applied to the Toyota Grand Highlander. I am 5'11" and I can easily fit in all three rows of this SUV. We have the captain's chairs for the second row, and once again in the third row of this I am able to fit because Lexus / Toyota, they designed the Grand Highlander and the TX to actually fit adults in the third row, and I can attest to that. The third row seats are actually electric. Usually I'm not a big fan of that, but in this vehicle, with this application, I don't really mind it because the electric seats allow the third row occupants to actually recline the third row. So that means they can be even more comfortable. Second row seats are also really adjustable. Again, I'm able to fit in the third row with pretty much the second row all the way back, nearly. So if you just push those second row seats up a bit more, you can really comfortably fit in the third row of this, so not bad at all. Being that this is a top of the line model, the second row seats, they are heated and cooled. You have the manual sunshades in the back, and you got some massive cup holders in the middle of the second row seats as well. So overall, really comfortable. Not to mention the trunk is really not bad, even with the third row seats up. You get over 20 cubic feet of space behind the third row, and you put those third row seats down, I mean, the space just gets absolutely massive. And you also have a spare tire located in the underside of the trunk as well, so that's brilliant. Once again, when I had the third row seats up, I was able to fit a regular kind of plastic tote box horizontally in the trunk. Practicality is the biggest pro regarding the TX, and that's what sets it apart in the luxury SUV space. And the fact that you have all of these drivetrain options to choose from and trim levels to choose from, it just means that there's something for everyone's budget. But once again, if you prioritize the absolute best driving dynamics and the best ride quality, once again, you're probably going to want to check out that TX 350. Yes, these TX 500s are exceptionally quick, and due to the refinement of this vehicle, I mean, you got to be doing like over 20 miles over the speed limit to even feel like you're moving in this vehicle. That's just how refined this vehicle is. So really, I would say that these hybrid models, they're almost too quick for their own good. You can easily get speeding tickets in this vehicle. That's how refined it is. But because this is so quick, you're kind of reaching the limits of this body and this chassis, and you start experiencing the negatives of this chassis a bit quicker due to the high levels of speed that can be achieved with this vehicle. Once again, I feel like those negatives can be alleviated with the TX 350, as I've mentioned multiple times. Now, I realize that throughout this review, I spent an extensive amount of time talking about how this vehicle drives and feels. I did that so you, the consumer, can know exactly what to look out for when you are personally testing the various trim levels and drivetrain options of this TX, because I personally think this is a vehicle that you should not be ignoring. If you are in the luxury SUV space, you should have this vehicle on your short list, because Lexus has achieved a truly premium driving experience here, and the sheer amount of space, it is something that other vehicles can't really compete with. Not to mention the price of a TX 350 luxury or F Sport fully loaded being around $70,000. That is substantially cheaper than any of its competition. And as promised at the beginning of this video, I do have a resource that I can share with you to save money on these TX Lexus vehicles. That's going to be through AutoCompanion. I'm going to have his information in the description box of this video. There are substantial discounts on these vehicles, and he has these discounts primarily in the Washington, D.C. and in the California areas, but he is able to ship nationwide. Shipping is something you have to pay extra for. I talk more about his service in my 2026 Lexus TX update video. So consider checking that video out next. If you found value with this content, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you on my 2026 TX video.